Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Three Principles Global Community webinar. The Three Principles Global Community, or 3PGC, is a nonprofit organization that's committed to bringing an understanding of the three principles to people throughout the world. Today, we have Jacquie Forde with us, and Jacquie is a Three Principles coach, mentor, and trainer, and international speaker, recently called a spiritual leader sharing principles that transform the human experience. You can find out more about Jacquie at jacquieforde.com. So Jacquie, thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you, Bonnie. And happy birthday to you, Bonnie. 21 again today.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You're most welcome. I'd like to thank 3PGC for giving me the opportunity, Bonnie, to be able to share again today. It's always lovely when I can come online and just talk to some of the beautiful souls that are all over the world that have been in touch with me personally, and have, written to me via my blogs or an email. And many of you have a place in my heart, and you know that already. So thank you for showing up tonight. I really, really appreciate it. Tonight, I really wanted to talk about being unashamedly human. As a Three Principles teacher and mentor, lately, it's becoming more and more apparent to me that even although people have an understanding of the principles, they seem to have forgotten about their own understanding about being human. And that's why I wanted to talk tonight about being unashamedly human, being the human being that we are at our core, the human being that is pure love and pure kindness. But before I start, I just wanted to give you all just a little bit of information about me and how I came across this understanding and some of the differences that it's made in my life. And then I'll go on to talk about the principles, but then share stories with you that show the principles in action, that show you areas where we wouldn't expect change to happen if you work in the normal mental health field. But having an understanding of the principles shows us that no one is broken and nobody needs fixed, and how wonderful it is to be able to share this understanding with people who in themselves have given up hope. So, as you all know, my name's Jacquie Forde. I am a Three Principles teacher, mentor, coach. I work both as an individual coaching, but I also have a business consultancy that's a non-profit that works and campaigns for improvements in mental health in Scotland and the UK politically, and at a corporation and a government level. I'm married, I have 3 daughters, and no doubt there'll be a story tonight coming out about 1 or 2 of my daughters. And I've recently moved home in the past 12 months, and I can share a story with you about that too. I've always been a seeker. I've always known there was more to life than I had figured out. There was a restlessness inside me that kept me pursuing, that kept me looking for something else. Even as a child, I grew up in a family where my mum was a Catholic and my dad was a Baptist. And in Glasgow growing up, that was quite a big thing, that you had a family with 2 different, perceived different religious backgrounds. And I went to church, but I never, ever, ever wanted to put a name on that huge intelligence that I felt behind everything that was going on in life. Even as a child, even as an 8 and 9-year-old, the word God to me was something that felt contracted and diluted. It didn't feel big enough. It didn't feel powerful enough. So I grew up, became a nurse, became a midwife, and thoroughly loved doing the jobs that I did, working in that field. I loved being of service. I loved that feeling of the pure joy of helping someone and not expecting anything back in return. How do you say to a patient who's just come out of surgery, "Oh, I've mopped your brow, therefore you owe me a £5?" It's kindness because you want to be kind. It's love because love is what service is. But after a while, I get this restlessness again. I knew there was something more to me. And I went to work in the pharmaceutical industry, and I stayed there for about sort of 25, 27 years, doing everything from sales, marketing, management, and latterly I was doing government affairs. And my corporate career highlighted to me that I was an overthinker. It showed me that I really didn't understand where my experience of life was coming from. So the search intensified. The search intensified to such a point that many of you will know this already, that my kids, when they were young, knew if they lost me in a bookstore, they would tell their dad, Mum's in the self-help section. Now, when your kids are 6, 4, and 2, and they can tell their father that you're in the self-help section, there's something more that you really need to be looking at. And I was in a bookshop with my 22-year-old daughter the other day there, and she reminded me of that. She said, Mum, why aren't you going to the self-help section? And I was like, I've recovered. I know about the principles, I've recovered. Mind you, my eye kept looking over to find out where it was, but I didn't actually go there. At the time that I was doing government affairs in the pharmaceutical industry, both my mother and my father were really, really unwell. My dad was dying, and my mum wasn't particularly well at the same time, and I was going through this huge shift, the shift to understand where my experience was coming from. I'd studied NLP, I'd studied hypnosis, I trained people in NLP, so I knew that I was the thinker. I knew that everybody else was the thinker. I knew that I could manipulate my thoughts and change them and quieten them down. And I knew that I could do that for other people too. But I knew something was still missing. So at the point that my dad was dying, I came across this understanding. And at that point, my life changed from searching to knowing. The search was over. This understanding for me was like the full stop at the end of a sentence. There was no more to do. There was no more to find out. This just made absolute sense to me, that this is what life was about. I really enjoy being unashamedly human. It's not something that I have been for a very, very long time. I used to be afraid of my feelings. I used to be concerned about the fear and the nervousness and the anxiousness that I would feel, especially when I worked in the pharmaceutical industry in my corporate career. I could walk into meetings with a room full of men, and to me, they looked like Rottweilers that hadn't been fed for a week. They looked angry, they looked restless, they looked as though they were gunning for me. And the minute that I saw that in their faces, or I thought I saw that in their faces, I immediately went into my mind, into my busy mind, making meaning out of what I had seen or what I thought I had seen. Now, when you live your life from that space of thinking that you know what another human being is thinking, you're on a hiding to absolutely nothing. Because none of us can tell what another human being is feeling or thinking. Because we all live in these separate realities. And that's part of the joy of being human. We're all energetic beings, so we're going to pick up on other people's energy. And this is something I always tell my students. I love when I meet people who are deeply grounded. Their energy is so quiet and so still, but there's a playfulness and there's a wonder and a lightheartedness about them. And that's an energetic thing. I can feel it. I don't know why I can feel it, but I can just feel it. I can also feel when people have a busy mind. And I'm sure you can too, not only in yourself, but in other people. You can feel it and you can see it. And the joy of that is when you can see it in others, it's more visible for you to see it in yourself. So what are these three principles, and why do they make such a difference in your life, in my life, in everyone's life? Why do they explain how we as humans and every other sentient being on the planet operates? And I think it's just really obvious and really, really simple. We all think. We're all aware of the fact that we think. And we all have a mind, and we're all alive. Now, if any of you have animals, you'll see that in your animals as well. I once remember meeting a little dog walking along the road, and this little thing that happened being in life showed me how this paradigm, how this understanding exists in all living creatures. I was walking along the road and I met a little dog with its owner, and I always put my hand down to let a dog sniff my hand before I touched the dog. And this little dog sniffed my hand, and I thought, oh, that's really cute. It likes me. This means that I can pat the dog. And the minute that I went to pat the dog, it ran and it hid itself behind its owner. And it was a beautiful, beautiful sandy-coloured spaniel, cocker spaniel. And the woman said to me, oh, he loves the idea of being patted by strangers, but then he just gets frightened. I thought, oh my God, me too. Me too. Not that I allow strangers to pat me, but, you know, I have experiences, and then, you know, you get frightened by them, and then it goes away. We're all exactly the same. So being unashamedly human to me means letting life live through me in all its rich tapestries, whatever that looks like, whatever that feels like. And I wasn't able to do that for a very, very long time before I came across this understanding. When my dad was dying, I remember waking up practically every morning, and I would have a pain in my side, in my left side of my abdomen, and it hurt so much that I went to the doctor and I asked for a referral to get an x-ray done. I thought I was coping with life. My kids were quite young. I was working my corporate job. We were doing up our house. My parents lived in a different city, about 50, 60 miles away. And I thought I was keeping it all together. I would do my job, make sure the kids were okay, and then drive 50 miles to my dad to see how my dad was doing. And I would cry from one end of the motorway to the other, so that I was okay by the time I got to see my dad, so that I was upbeat and happy and friendly and the way that I thought he wanted me to be. And I would spend time with my dad. And then I would leave him, and I'd get in the car, and then I'd cry from the other end of the motorway back to my home, so that by the time that I got there, I was okay for my kids. I was okay for my husband. But what I was doing, I wasn't giving myself time to heal. I wasn't giving myself time to grieve. I wasn't giving myself time to nourish me. I was trying to be everything for everybody else. And when we do that as human beings, suppress our feelings, something always pops out from that. Some kind of sabotage behaviour, something that we're uncomfortable with, something that we don't like in ourselves. For me, it was overeating. I was always really slim, and then I started to put weight on, but I couldn't see it because my mind was so busy that I couldn't see what was happening to me. And it was always as if layer upon layer upon layer, I was creating one story over another, over another, over another, building them into beliefs. And then my brain was filing them. Because I'm sure all of you on this webinar know that your brain and your mind are completely different. Our brains are biological. They store information. They retrieve information. They help us bring up memories so that we can try to make sense of what is happening. They try to look after us, try to take care of us. That's what our brain is for. It's biological and it's functional and it is a machine. But our minds are spiritual. So my brain would bring up all of these ideas about, oh, you're doing this because of this, or you're doing that because of this. When in fact, all my brain was doing was bringing up stories, bringing up old beliefs, old habits, old patterns that in my cloudy thinking, I couldn't see through. I thought they were fact. I thought that was truth. And that little voice in my head, and all of you here, don't say you've not got this little voice, because we do. We all have that voice that speaks to us. Some of us have about 10 or 12 voices. But that voice is only ever ourselves. It's only ever our thought in the moment coming through. It's only ever our wisdom popping through to guide us. And the differentiator between is a thought in the moment or is it wisdom guiding me is always the feeling. The feeling of love and kindness is the feeling that accompanies wisdom. There's a beautiful, beautiful feeling that guides us to do what we're meant to do. When something pops up and it doesn't have that feeling, I just notice it. I see it. And I just let it go. So what this understanding has given me is the ability to see through my thinking. To notice that I am the thinker. It's nobody else. It's me. And that I don't have to add my awareness to them. I can just let them pass on by. I don't have to do anything with them. I had an incident earlier this week where we had a workman who was meant to come and do some work for us. And I don't know if any of you have had this issue, but the guy was meant to come because he was going to do some work on our summer house roof. And he's been promising for about 6 months that he'll come. And he hasn't turned up. And I wanted the work done by the end of October. And I phoned him last week and I said, are you going to come, Stuart? Are you going to come and do this work? And he says, yeah, I'm going to come. I'll be there on Monday. And on Monday morning, he didn't show up. And I love where I was with it. It was like, okay, he's not showing up. Instead of, I could say 10 expletives here, but he just didn't show up. And it had nothing to do with me. And just before I came on the webinar tonight, he showed up at the door. And he said, Jacquie, I'm so sorry. I've had flu. And I just switched my phone off. And what came out of my mouth was just, that's okay, Stuart. I'm glad you're feeling better. It's not nice to have flu, but I'm glad you're better. And if you want to do the work, that's fine. But if you don't, that's okay too. We'll find somebody else. He said, no, I want to do the work, Jacquie. He says, and thank you. I said, what are you thanking me for? He says, for not getting angry with me. But here's the thing. I'm not responsible for him. I'm not responsible for what he does or he doesn't do. So I don't have to buy into whatever is going on in his mind or whatever situation we're both in. It felt like a beautiful, loving transaction. It just felt kind and there was no malice and there was no tension behind it. And when somebody's consistently let us down, we have a habit of wanting to say something, of wanting to snipe, of wanting to let them know that we're not happy. But all we're ever doing when we feel we want to do that is we're buying into an idea. And an idea is only ever a thought construct in the moment. It isn't actually real. It doesn't actually mean anything unless we add that meaning to it. And if you notice where your feeling state is, whether you're in a low mood or whether you're in a higher state of mind, I always talk about this as being like cloudy thinking and clear thinking. If I ever feel, that sort of inner bitch want to come out, I know that I'm in a low mood. I know that's what it is. Until I don't. And then sometimes that inner bitch comes out and then it's like, oh, okay, that's what that was. And then the apology is always easier afterwards. It was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. That was just, I was in a low mood. And what I've enjoyed seeing with my 3 daughters is they know also when they're in a low mood. So if their thinking gets a little bit cranky, usually later at night, and they're starting to have a conversation and it's flying about all over the place and it's insecure and it's just that little bit crazy, I love that they can come back to that point and say to me, Mum, it's okay, I'm just tired or I'm in a bit of a low mood. Can we talk about this tomorrow? There's a grace in that. There's a gentleness in that. Being able just to let something go. To not feel you have to pursue it. Understanding how your rhythm of being human naturally goes up and down throughout the day. And knowing when it's best to have conversations and knowing when it's better not to. Bill Pettit always talks about knowing when he's in a low mood. What he has to do is he has to keep his hands in his pockets and he has to keep his mouth shut. I know how that goes. I've been like that myself. But I've also not kept my hands to myself and I've also not kept my mouth shut. And there's a huge difference in the reactions that you get from people when you operate from that space. What I love about this understanding is the living experience of it. And, as Sid always said, it's about your greatest teacher is life itself. It's seeing something from inside you, an insight from you. And then seeing that again and again. And every time you see it that wee bit deeper and that wee bit deeper. And as you do, it becomes clearer and clearer. And then sometimes you feel as though you've seen through something. And all of a sudden, you just get this other insight. And it just completely frees you up. I keep seeing how my mind works. And the more that I see how my mind works, the more I see how everybody else's minds work in exactly the same way. An instance about 6 months ago with one of my daughters. And we were in the kitchen just having a conversation. And she started to go into kind of victim mode about something. And this is something that she used to do in her past. And I thought, oh my God, I thought we'd go over that. I don't understand why she's doing this again. Why is she doing this again? And I snapped at her. And she snapped back at me, which is always the way when you have 2 people in a low mood. There's a clash happens. Nobody hears anything. So I left the room. And just as I was walking up the stairs, this little beautiful fresh thought came to mind. And the fresh thought was, why is it if I accept my own humanity, my own humanness, why did I not accept hers? I was graceful and gentle with myself for my moods. But in that moment, I wasn't being with her. So I apologized. And seeing that in my daughter, Megan, gave me this huge insight about sometimes in this understanding, we see things in ourselves and we forget that this is across the board. Every single one of us, it applies to all of us, not just you. So those of you that are listening to me and your minds are getting busier and busier, or those of you who are listening to me and your minds are getting quieter and quieter, the only difference is, for those of us that our minds are getting quieter and quieter, you're just letting go of what's going on in your head. You're paying less attention to the thoughts in your head. You're giving less and less of them any meaning. And for those of you that can feel your mind's getting busier, the only thing that's happening with you is you're putting your awareness on those thoughts and you're giving them meaning. Same coin, two sides. I see it as a dance. I see it as playing. I don't see it as anything to be afraid of or anything to worry about. It's just our natural tendency as human beings. Sometimes we're clear in our thinking and sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're in a low state of mind and sometimes we're in a better state of mind. Sometimes we're happy, sometimes we're not. Whenever I experience the lows, I know that I'm going to learn something. I know that I'm going to learn something new. I'm going to see something new. And sometimes I can be in a low mood for days. But I still go on with my life. I don't hide under the duvet and I don't, sort of drink 10 bottles of wine or, do things I shouldn't do. I just live my life knowing that I'm actually in quite a low state of mind. And wait for that natural shift, for when it will move all on its own. And sometimes that can be within an hour, sometimes it can be sooner, sometimes it takes a bit longer. And when it starts to take a bit longer, I usually ask myself the question, what is it I'm not seeing? And then I just leave it. I don't analyze it. I don't care. Because it will come to me when it's meant to come to me. So in being unashamedly human, my invitation to you is to let life live through you, to feel what life gives you, to learn from what life gives you, and then to share that with others. Because when we share what we've seen in a conversational way with other human beings, we're giving them the invitation to see something new and fresh also. When we try to share from a place of teaching, like I did with my kids, with the principles when I first came across it, the eye rolling was something to behold. It really was. They loved to roll their eyes at me and just go, for God's sake, Mum, I heard this before. Oh, it's just your thinking, Mum. I mean, one of my daughters actually in the car one night, we were driving along, I was in this Zen place and she was bitching about one of her friends. And I was like, oh, don't worry about her, Nikki. Maybe she's just in a low state of mind and, she's just not seeing things very clearly. And my daughter snapped at me. Mum, this is not a teachable moment. And I thought, how bloody wonderful it is. You've just taught me something. But she was so snappy with me, I couldn't say that to her, even though I wanted to go, oh, thank you, Nikki, for showing me something. And it's in that intuitive way of knowing when it's right to share and when it's not. When you listen from a really calm, beautiful space with nothing in your mind, you're able to determine whether you want to share information or not share information about this understanding. So we all think, we're all aware, and we all have a mind and we're all alive. Hey, welcome to being human. To me, the principles are facts. absolute facts. They're not beliefs. You see, we all have feelings that pop up for us, feelings of anger, feelings of shame, feelings of doubt, feelings of restlessness, feelings of insecurity, love, kindness. We have all of those feelings. But the problem is not any of those feelings. The problem is where you think it's coming from. It can only ever come from our thinking in the moment. And I want to share a story for you that really, really touched my heart recently. I work quite a lot with young women, and I guess because it just feels like that's what I'm called to do. So young women is anybody who's younger than me. So anybody under 55. But there's a beautiful 16-year-old girl that I'm working with, and I love her with all of my heart. She's one of many little girls or young women that I'm working with at the moment who are self-harming. And I wrote about it in my blog, my Soul Shift blog, a couple of weeks ago. This little girl is only 16 years old, but for the last 4 years, since she was 12, she's been self-harming, and she's been attending psychiatrists, psychologists, social workers. She's been dredging up her past to try and fix her future. She had got to the stage where it had become like routine to sit in front of someone and just rattle off what her story was without her actually being attached to it. And it wasn't actually solving anything for her. Her mother was fraught and anxious and had come across the principles and found me via the 3PGC. So her mother called me up and we had a little chat about her daughter, and she told me all about her daughter, who's just such a beautiful soul. And I said, you know, when I work with people, I want to talk to them first, because I want to know that we want to work together, rather than it being the mother wants me to work with someone or the father wants me to work with someone. The person, the soul, has to decide that they want to work with me. Nobody else. That soul has to decide. So the little girl phoned me up and we just had this magical conversation. And we decided that we were going to work together. Our first call, we just chatted about life, about her school, about her college, about her hobbies, what she enjoyed, what she didn't enjoy. And I just waited, and on the journey enjoyed everything that I was learning about her. I wasn't waiting, listening to get right in there with the principles. Right, there's my point. That's when I introduced the principles. I was just listening for that wisdom to bubble up inside of me that says, oh, have you thought about this? Or have you thought about that? Because I know there's no blueprint. I know there's no certain sentence I'm meant to say. I know there's no fixing to do. And at that moment, when it bubbled up in me that I was to say something, I just said to her, do you know, you just sound like me. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, you just sound like me. I said, when I get upset, I eat pies. And she burst out laughing. She says, what do you mean? I said, well, years ago when I get really, really upset, I would comfort you. And, you know, I would often say to my husband, don't upset me or I'll go and eat a pie. And he would just laugh at me. I said, we all have something about ourselves that when we get these feelings of being uncomfortable, we look to fix them. And we think we can fix them by doing something outside of ourselves. Some people drink, some people watch porn, some people gamble, some people over-exercise, some people self-harm. And she says, oh my God. I said, I said, all you're doing is you're looking for something to fix the uncomfortable feeling that you're feeling. And your feelings can only ever come from your thought in the moment. And so we had a chat around that. 2 weeks after our first chat, she hadn't self-harmed at all. She hadn't done a thing. She was wonderful. Her mum said she was sleeping better, she was getting up, she was vibrant at college, and even although things weren't quite the way she wanted them to be at college, she was coping. She wasn't running away from anything. And then there was one night, she didn't sleep very well. She was extremely tired, very, very tired. And a couple of things transpired at college, and she self-harmed again. And I was due to speak to her that night. And when we spoke later on that night, I just said to her, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it. We all see things clearly, and then we forget. We go from clear thinking to cloudy thinking. And we talked about her spiritual essence. We talked about the fact that she wasn't mentally unwell. She was just responding the only way that she could in that moment to what she thought she had to do. She was feeling her thinking and thought the way that she had done it before, the brain pops up, oh, this is how we relieve this. And she followed that route because her mind was busy. So I spoke to her again a couple of weeks later, hasn't self-harmed, getting on fantastically well at college, being invited to all sorts of parties, feeling so much better about life. Taught her mum something that I had spoken to her about knowing where your feeling state is. So she can now tell when she's in her head or if she's in her heart. And so she was showing her mum this on a train journey. Mum, I have to show you this. This is how this works. I got a text from her mum just yesterday, and it said, thank you, Jacquie. I wish I'd found you sooner. My daughter's fantastic. She's so calm, and she's starting to understand where her feelings are coming from. 4 sessions, soul to soul sessions. I'm just talking to her as though we're the same age. I'm talking to her as though I don't know anything more than she knows. We're having a conversation about life. And in that conversation about life, there is nothing but love and kindness and space to understand how we create our moment-to-moment experience of life. All our feelings are created from thought, all of them. And when you start to see that in yourself and you start to see it in others, there's nothing there but compassion. When we follow a thought, all we're doing is we're buying into it and we're becoming attached to it. That we're desiring an outcome from it. To me, that's like a game. It's like going down the rabbit hole when you know there's nothing at the end of the rabbit hole except something you don't really want to get. I've spoken for 40 minutes. I'm just wondering if anybody has any questions and they want to ask me something. I'd love that. And that's okay too. I remember doing a meeting for, there's like 200 people who worked for the health service in Edinburgh. And they told me, first of all, that I was going to get the morning slot. And I thought, great, everybody's going to be awake and they're all going to listen to what I have to say. And I'll be terribly windswept and interesting. And then they changed my slot to after lunch, you know, and that's the dead slot. That's when everybody's full of carbohydrates and just wants to go for a sleep. So I just stood up and I just said, you know, I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted that you're all here and you're listening and you're going to be sharing yourself with me. And if you want to fall asleep, that's okay. I don't mind. And if you want to stay awake, that's okay too. And they did. Quite a number of them fell asleep. Years ago, that would have bothered me. I thought, oh my goodness, I must be boring. But it was perfect, absolutely perfect.
Great. Hey, Jack.
Hi.
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 I really loved what you said about just when you were speaking about working with that young woman, about just having a conversation with her. And what I took from it was not thinking you had to do anything or say anything in particular to, help her, but really just be with her. Is that how you work with people? Is that basically, did I get it right?
You're absolutely right, Claudie. That's how I live my life. I actually don't feel as though there's anything I'm meant to do until I'm doing it. I live in the moment. My husband calls it faffing around, but I live in the moment. Whatever happens, happens. And when I'm with someone, like the day that she self-harmed, Claudie, I got up into my thinking a wee bit. I thought, oh my God, she's not getting it. She's not getting it. Mm-hmm. And just before the call, I got a bit up here, like, oh, what? There must be something else I have to say to her. There must be something else I can share with her. But the minute I got in the call, it was only ever a conversation, because that's where the transformation occurs from.
Yeah.
This is what I see, is the transformation occurs from that beautiful space of love and kindness, and that there's no difference, and that I have nothing to teach. Mm-hmm. I just point to what I know is true.
Mm-hmm. Well, what do you do, Jacquie, if nothing occurs to you? Like you have really no thought, nothing to offer? Do you just say, I don't really know what to say? Or how does that work?
I usually I'm quiet and I wait for something to bubble up. And if it doesn't bubble up, I just say, tell me more about you. Tell me more about what you're thinking. So I invite the other person to talk more. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very, very few people, Claudie, is it Claudie?
It's actually Claudette, but that's
okay.
Kind of my
okay, Claudie. Yeah. Okay, Claudie, there's very few people on this earth who truly feel listened to. Because we tend to listen to respond.
Yeah.
But when you're sitting and you're with someone in that space, you're listening for wisdom. You're listening for insight. Mm-hmm. You're not listening to respond from here. Yeah. You're listening to respond from your heart or your soul or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And I'm sure you know the difference in doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, the other thing I do when I'm working with youngsters is I don't therapize it. I don't medicalize it. We're out and about in life. I don't have a practice room. I don't have, the couch that they like. I just don't do any of that. I'm in life, teaching life. I once had a young student that I took to a horror show, just so that she could see how frightened I got in the moment when people jump out from dark places. Oh. Mm-hmm. She wasn't frightened by it, but I was, and she found that hysterically funny. Mm-hmm. She saw me get frightened, and then it went away again. Yeah, that's life.
Yeah. That's very helpful. Yeah.
Good.
Thank you.
Good.
So it really comes down to really just be who you are, and don't worry about it.
Yeah, just be who you are in the moment.
In the moment.
I have times, and it makes me giggle sometimes. I can be lovey and kind and gentle. And then at other times, as one of my students on here will tell you, I can be quite piercing. You know, if, you know, it's whatever comes up in the moment, I'm kind of like, no, that's not true.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I'll be quite forceful. But that
Mm-hmm.
forcefulness is certainty that if I've been down the same road 3 or 4 times and the person's not seeing it, then wisdom will guide me to see it a different way.
Yeah. Good. Thank
you know, but it's always done from a space of love.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions, Bonnie?
Hi, Jacquie.
Oh, hi, Susan. We're speaking tomorrow.
Lovely to see you.
You too.
I was curious if you could talk a little more about when you said about when you think you know what others are thinking. So in a situation when you're working with someone, like you're saying, obviously the role is you want to be helpful and giving and sharing, and sometimes I do find myself thinking more about what they're thinking, and then trying to catch myself and going, well, are you doing it again, to stop doing that. But, and I know we're going to talk about this more tomorrow, but since I've learned and discovered the 3 principles in the last almost 3 years now, all my previous training, it just seems like, I won't say completely useless because that's too harsh. But I find that it's like a different language. It's like, I feel like in some ways that I've got a clearer sense of a language or something. And so when I find myself thinking, noticing that I'm worrying about, not so much worrying, but thinking I know what they're thinking, and then trying to say whatever shows up to say, I'm just wondering if, do you notice yourself doing that? And if you do, what do you do?
To me, that's the dance of life. That really is one of the dances of life. I can be in a conversation with someone, Susan, and it's almost like I've got an auto cue at the side. You know, these auto cues that people in television have that give them all the words of what they're meant to say, like the news, or it can be the ticker tape at the bottom of the news. I can be having a conversation with someone and I can see that going on. And I have a choice. I have a choice. Do I buy into it or do I just ignore it? I know that if I'm buying into it, I've gone back up into my head.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that happens in a conversation. I can be speaking to you now and I'm flitting in and out of that because that's human. That's what happens. That's what we do. So I don't place any emphasis on it whatsoever. Often I laugh at myself. If I think I know what somebody else is thinking, it's like, oh, I think I'm a witch again. Something's going on here.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes you're guided and it's an intuitive thing. So it's an intuitive thing that, and I keep doing this, it bubbles up inside of you. So you know the right thing to say, you know the right thing to do. And it's not that you know what they're thinking, but you're picking up on a feeling. You're picking up on something.
Right.
I spoke earlier to Claudie that if I'm speaking with someone and I'm in my head and I think I know what I want to say and I'm listening to respond, then I'm not in the right space.
Yeah. I think that's what I'm finding is different. Because I mean, coming from the background of being a therapist, that was the old me. I would be listening for the cues of what to respond to and maybe how to help, guide or whatever way you want to say it. Whereas now I find that it's just a different language and it's a totally different way of listening. More, I guess, the neutral listening. And I guess that's it. There's not as much on my mind now when I'm listening. And even when I'm talking, like, it's really curious. I did a presentation at a conference last week, and normally, you know, I'd be fussing over slides and all of that kind of thing, and I did none of that. You know, and I started I won't say I felt like I was winging it, but not really. It was almost like an intention to wing it,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean. And I started with saying, you know, this is a really old conversation for me because it was about disability work. And yeah, and it was like totally different. Like you know, and even some people that were in the presentation, they said to me that had seen me speak before, they said, wow, something's different, you know, because there's just, yeah.
A couple of things you've said there, Susan, that I'd love to speak to, is that when our minds are clearer, we allow wisdom to come through us. We allow our bandwidth to widen. We allow that connection, that divine connection, to open up. And we know what to say, when to say it and how to say it, when to be quiet, how not to be afraid if your mind does go quiet, and how to pick that up again in a presentation or a conversation. When you spoke about being a therapist, it reminded me of something that I've seen quite clearly, Susan, and that is when I'm teaching, coaching, or mentoring, I'm not anything.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting.
Yeah,
that's what I find is different. And that's why I say I feel like, in some ways, I feel like my previous training has just completely gone out the window because the therapist isn't there. It's just me now.
But there will be things that you learned as a therapist that will still come through you that will be helpful. And I always say this to people too, is that everything that you've learned up until now has brought you to this place. Therefore, it has its use, and it's not something that we should completely dismiss.
Yeah, that's what I've been struggling with, I think.
Yeah.
Kind of like, oh, you know, it's because there's, you know, there's that attachment. You know,
not really. No, I don't know that attachment.
So did you once feel that attachment and now you don't?
No, because attachment is just you buying into a thought.
Yeah.
That's all that is. You know, you've created a story and then you're shining your awareness on it like some kind of Steven Spielberg movie, you know, and wanting the happy ending. That's all that is. It's a story. It's a game. It means nothing unless you let it have meaning. So, you know, I could say the same thing, you know, like, oh, you know, when I was an NLP practitioner and hypnotherapist, it was wonderful. And now I can't use any more of that. And oh my God, the money that I spent getting trained is that. And it's kind of like, that's crap. It's, you know, it doesn't make sense because all of that has brought me to this point. It's taught me about me. It's taught me about other human beings. It's given me life skills that I wouldn't have got unless I'd undertaken that training. And to me, the principles they're the foundation in which everything rests. Religion, psychology, psychiatry, policy, everything rests on top of this.
Yeah, that's a lovely way to explain it.
Yeah, so be gentle with yourself there, Susan, because there's what I love is there's no one to be and there's nothing to get.
Yeah, there's a sense of freedom that, well, it's freeing. It definitely feels, there's a sense of freeing, but it almost feels like, oh, well, I should be doing something more.
But then
it's
again,
unusual.
Yeah. But then again, do you know what's beautiful is the fact that you're noticing that.
Yes. Yeah.
You're conscious of it. And so many people are not conscious of that story. So, you know, keep looking in that direction and you'll keep seeing more and more about it. But from a space of love and a space of gentleness on yourself rather than analysing and trying to figure it out, because that's heavy duty and that's just, you know, we all know how that works.
Yeah, I do notice when I fall back into that. You know, it's like, whoa, slow down, you know.
Yeah.
I'm just getting caught up in there again.
Yeah, and that is beautiful that you see that. That's really lovely.
Thank you. I
Thank
look
you,
forward
Susan.
to tomorrow.
Yes, me too. Susan's interviewing me for one of our podcasts tomorrow, so we've been trying to get this organised for a while. Never mind.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Susan. Does anyone have anything else they want to sort of to share or to ask? I love this conversation. We'll get Terry. I love this conversation about being human, because if you think about how society works at the moment, has been working for the last few decades, is that people are being taught that feeling life is a bad thing. If you feel life and you have a low mood, you go to the doctor and you get antidepressives. If you're feeling uncomfortable about something, people look outside of themselves to try and fix it with consumerism and all sorts of other little games. What this understanding teaches us is that it's perfectly okay to be human. In fact, this is how we evolve, by feeling life. I mean, last week, Pat knows this. Last week I lost someone very, very, very close to me, very close to me. And I knew that I had to be gentle with myself. And I was meant to be in Dublin doing a retreat. But I just wrote a note to everyone and I said, look, I can't. I need to be here. I need to be here with my family. I need to just stay in a quiet space. And my moods have oscillated from feeling very tearful to feeling very calm and very thankful. But the beautiful thing about what I'm experiencing is that I know it's transient. And I know it's not always there. And I know it's only ever my thinking in the moment that is causing the pain or causing the distress. And because I can see that, I can see through it. And it's easier to let go. Terry, sorry.
You know, we only have 1 minute left, so I just want to thank you for all you've said, and I realize it's gonna be with me in whatever it is I want to talk to you about, and I'll let that wisdom come.
Are you sure? If it's there just now, Terry, just say it. I'm okay to hang on.
Well, it's not a small conversation, so I'll just, we'll have a conversation at another time, or if needed, if it's still there.
Okay, Terry, that's not a problem.
Thank you.
Oh no, thank you. Again, I'd just like to thank you all for taking time out of your day to come and listen to my ramblings. It's appreciated. Jeanette, what have you written there? Jeanette, unmute yourself. What have you written?
Yes, I kind of envy your dancing. Speaking about the dance, it reminds me about periods. Yeah, I can, and I do that. And then I am caught up in my head, especially about business things I should provide or produce or whatever. But it really resonates with me, what you're saying, that you're living in the moment and laugh about being caught up. And so that's I hear that, and it is a mirroring, and of course I envy that. But thank you very much. It stirs up. Yes, this is genuine, right? This is life. I'm being caught up in behaving adult-like, but which feels like more productive than I want to be.
Yeah.
So.
I know what you're saying, Jeanette. People often say this: there's this life, and then there's business. Life, and then there's business. And you know what? The only difference is the awareness that you're putting on it. Sort of the beliefs that you're putting around it. Yeah. There is no difference. Mm-hmm. And the wonderful thing is that the dance takes many forms. Sometimes it's a waltz, and sometimes it's a tango, but it's all a dance. Mm-hmm. And it's been okay with that. Just being okay with that. I often get into the playground, you know, my metaphorical playground in my head, and I'm on the swings and I'm on the roundabout and I'm running around and I fall and I scratch my knee or I bang my head. But it doesn't matter because it's all learning. And the only way it becomes a problem is when I add meaning to it.
Beautiful metaphor, especially with the falling, because just kiss on the knee, right? And then done with it.
I think if we could all learn to be a bit more gentle with ourselves and less judgmental, I think we are more judgmental of ourselves than we are of anybody else. And if there was a way to see through the fact that you are the thinker causing those judgmental thoughts, then that helps us just sort of lighten up a wee bit.
Think so.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. It was very, I hear that. Thank you.
That's good. Thank you for speaking, Jeanette. And I can see Leila smiling away there. What are you smiling for, Leila?
I just love listening to you. But if you have time, I have one question.
Okay. Are we okay, Bonnie? Yeah.
I would like you to say something more about the teaching versus sharing. That I can't help that I really would like, or I see something that I see other people don't. So in a way, I know something that would be helpful for them to know. So I'm not sure if I'm kind of wondering when do I share, when do I teach? Do I actually know the difference? Because when I share, I could share because I just share because somebody asked me and I know it's true for me. But I also could share because I think it's helpful for them to see what I see. So I kind of wonder, do I share then or do I teach? Because I want them. Huh?
So carry on, Leila, it's okay. You want them to get it, don't you? You want them to get it.
Yeah, many times I do. And sometimes I don't care. It's like I have, as I told you on text, there's a woman at work and I had to talk to her because she make everybody else think that she's a problem in a way. And I think for her especially, it's really helpful to see something about the principles. But I really can see that I would like to teach her. But how can I share instead of teach?
Okay, I love your question. I really love it. And there's probably a few people in here that want that answered as well. And I can only talk about what what I've experienced and what I know. Other people have different answers to this, Leila. When we have conversations with our friends and our family, and we want to inform them about something, it just comes out naturally. We don't have this label in our head about, I have to teach them the 3 principles. It just naturally occurs in a conversation. What I mean by that...
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. The difference for me is when I share, Leila, I'm sharing from my heart. I'm not sharing from my head. So I don't have to even ask myself the question, is this the right time? Is this what I should be doing? Are they getting it? It's just intuition just guides me and I share. And if they get it, they get it. And if they don't, they don't, because that's not my department. It's not up to me. All we're ever doing when we share is pointing in a direction. Then it's up to the other person. If I feel I'm teaching, I'm invested. I want someone to get something. And I'm doing it from my intellect, Leila, not from my heart.
Mm-hmm.
There's a different feeling when someone is sharing this understanding than when somebody is teaching. And I'm not saying that teaching intellectually is wrong, because some people hear something intellectually and then start to look deeper for the feeling. But what I'm saying is, when we're in a space that we're just sharing what we know, what we've seen, what our experience is, what we know is unequivocally true, then we're sharing from our heart. And all we're doing is having that conversation that we would with our family or a friend when we're talking about the weather or we're talking about life. We're not trying to teach anything, we're just sharing experience.
Yeah, I guess I analyze it too much, and sometimes it feels almost like if my heart, like where my heart is placed on my body, if I had a mouth there, I would start speaking. But on the same time, I really would like them, or I could see that it would be helpful for them. I could get so excited because this has meant so much for me. It has changed so much for me.
Then
so that's why
speak from what you know without thinking you want them to get anything, Leila.
Yeah.
Just speak from your heart with its lovely mouth on it. Tell them what you know. Tell them what you've seen. Let them feel that from you. Then it's up to them. I have shared things with people, Leila, and the insights they've gotten are absolutely nothing to do with anything I've said. And it's been like, whoa, where did that insight come from? It just shows you that what I'm saying to you really doesn't matter. It's all about the feeling and what that feeling stirs up in you, what insight bubbles up for you. That's what's important. And anytime we're getting into that, oh yeah, but I'd like this to happen, oh, and this could happen. No, you're just in your thinking, Leila. You're just buying into whatever's going on up here. And that, it's not wrong. It's an opportunity to learn something. It's not that it's, anything to worry about. It's just, it happens. But I feel your heart space. It's like, oh my God, I want them all to know this. I want everybody to learn. I want everybody to feel what I feel. And we all go through that. But it's settling back down and knowing that when you feel that in yourself, that you want somebody to get something, that's when you rest back again. That's the invitation to go, okay.
Step back.
Step back. Breathe. Take a breath. Walk across the room. Do whatever occurs to you. Because I often feel when people come across this understanding, I got like this, I became almost like a vampire. I couldn't get enough information. I was reading everything and watching everything, and my brain was completely overloaded. And it was just like, I want to go in this course and that course and this course. And this seems to happen to everybody. You become like a vampire. Like you've heard truth and you want more truth. But your greatest teacher is letting your insight settle. Letting the insight in its wonderful beauty reveal itself to you without you touching it. Let it unfold. Don't try to grab a hold of it. And make space. Make space in your life to see things. I mean, I run a book club for them. It's the Missing Link Book Club, and I do it twice a year. And people keep saying to me, Jacquie, why do you do it over 13 months? People want to do it in 13 days or 13 weeks. And it's kind of like, well, the reason I do it in 13 months is because each chapter, Sid invites us to look at a different part of the missing link, of how we as human beings operate. And then my students have an invitation to see that unfold in the next month. rather than this ever ready, quick, get what you want immediately life that we all live in. It's almost like the three principles marshmallow test. You've heard about the marshmallow test, where the little kids are told, right, if you sit in the room just now, you can have one marshmallow if you want to eat it just now, but if you wait for half an hour, you can have 10. And very few of the kids could wait to get the 10 marshmallows. They all wanted the one. The principles to me are this huge marshmallow test that many of us are just dipping in and out of. Sometimes we want insights now, we want to know all about it now. And in that we get busy-minded. But when we settle into, oh, it will reveal itself to me when it's meant to. I'll know what that means when I'm meant to know what that means. We get so much more richness from it.
Yeah. I like that, to step back.
Go fishing, Leila. Go fishing. Go fishing and send me a picture of your salmon again in the middle of the mountains. I'd love that.
Yeah.
I love you, Leila. Thank you.
I love you too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I just, again, thank you everybody for coming along tonight, for your beautiful energy and your beautiful conversation. I've really, really enjoyed tonight. What I'm going to ask each and all of you to do is, if you've enjoyed the webinar, if you just leave a little comment in the boxes, just so that it helps to direct other people to this webinar. If you found it useful, just say what you found useful about it on the 3PGC YouTube channel, and then it helps direct other people so they can come to, if there's something in particular that you've seen that they might want to have a wee look at too. So thank you again.
Jacquie, thank you so much. I really, really enjoyed this. I especially love how fun and lighthearted it always is to talk to you.
Thank you, Bonnie.
So it's really very, very fun. And just a reminder that there'll be another webinar on November 9th, and that's with Ken Manning. So hope to see you all then.
Okay. Lots of love, everybody. Bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.